wide underneath. Oh, look at Stuart Swales.
My first memory of Speedway is back in 1978. Went to the World Final at Wembley, and I can just remember, I can't remember the meeting as such, just the noise and the smell and the noise of the crowd and the bikes. That's the first memory of Speedway. The time when I thought to myself, this is what I want to do when I get older, was probably about 1981-82, when my dad used to take me down to Cleveland Park. The meeting I can remember that stands out even from when I was 6 or 7 year old was against Newcastle, which was a local derby. So there was a really big crowd. There were really high tension meetings back in them days. And there was a rider at the time called Martin Dixon, a local lad. He was only in his early 20s, getting a bit of a reputation as a really hard, aggressive rider, but really not scared to really go for it. And that he caught my attention as a kid. That's what I thought. Wow, he really got the crowd going. There was always a bit of controversy around him, and that's when I thought to myself at 7 year old, this is what I want to do when I get older, and that stuck me right through. That's when I got hooked on it. As kids, we didn't have we did have motorbikes, but not Speedway bikes. We used to play cycle Speedway, and we used to arrange matches for the local kids to come round, and all the family were involved in it, and we used to have just arrange these little meetings between all of the local kids. And it wasn't up until probably 1986 when we got a Speedway bike. Me and my brother got one between us for Christmas, which was a full-size Speedway bike with a small Honda engine in it, and then used to come home after school every night and basically blast round 2 telegraph poles in the front field at where we grew up on the farm. This is where we used to, when I was a kid, race around these 2 telegraph poles in this field. It's obviously full of horses now. You can just about make out the dip. That's where the track used to come out, and then used to tear down that bit of grass, and you can I can probably make it out because I knew where it was, but it's just going in that and just around there. We used to do that every night after school in there, and there was just no grass left on that. It was just a perfect oval shape. Because obviously that's 30 plus years ago now. It's obviously all grown over. You can just about make out where the dips are, where the tyres dug all the dirt out. In 1990 to 1991 is when I got my first full-size Speedway bike, and started doing junior racing, which was they used to put a couple of heats, which is races after the main match on the night. And I suppose made steady progression through 91, through 92. At the end of 92, for the 93 season, got offered a place at Bradford for the following year, a proper contract in the first team. At that point, one of the guys who was down the speed with my dad's friends from back in the really good scrambler in his day, Ronnie Tate, decided to help me out, and he helped me out with the purchase of a new bike. And we'd already got together enough sponsorship to buy another engine as well. So I was pretty well set up, ready for the 93 season at Bradford. Unfortunately, that year didn't go to plan. It was a difficult step up for me, and ended up leaving Bradford probably halfway through the year. to go back to Middlesbrough and just back into the sort of like the junior races. When I started the '94 season, I had no sort of like team as such. I was just sort of like, I wasn't like signed in any first team or anything. I got a few outings at reserve at the odd time if they were short of a rider. Until Long Eaton gave me a call. Eric Bucott was the team manager there. He was a former British champion, and he said one of their riders was injured, would I go and fill in? Obviously I jumped at it. At the time, Martin Dixon, who was obviously my childhood idol, he was riding for them at the time, so I used to travel down with him to the home meetings in his van. I was only there an actual month, did a month, we did quite a lot of meetings for them, and went really well, scored a lot of points for them. But when the rider who was injured was ready to come back in, there was obviously no space for me. It was only ever a short-term thing.
He rode with me at Long Eaton for a little bit, I think. Did he ride Long? Yeah. It was a good little ride, but it was the wrong time where it was a bit hard to get into teams for a couple of years, because Speedway had gone into one league for 2 years and it was hard to get started. But it was good to watch. He was always try hard, come from the back and that. I think he was very nervous, wasn't he? He wouldn't let it show, but he was very nervous. But if you're not nervous, then you shouldn't be doing it.
I'd made such an improvement, made such an impression with Long Eaton. Middlesbrough offered me a team spot straight after that. So I literally finished my last meeting for Long Eaton on the Wednesday night and rode for Middlesbrough on the Thursday.
I know you were disappointed when you had to leave Long Eaton due to about 1/100th of a decimal point in your average, but you're settling well at Middlesbrough now.
Yeah, I'm getting a few points. Pretty consistent as well, so that's pretty good. But I was a bit disappointed to leave Long Eaton, but it's going all right.
These are some of my trophies from throughout my career. Probably my favourite one, like I mentioned before, is that one there, where I won the semi-final of the British Under-21 Championship in my last year of competing in it at Mildenhall, and that was probably the biggest individual meeting I've won. Not a lot of trophies from team events, as it was a team event, and I wasn't really involved in many clubs that actually won any, so this is mostly on an individual basis. Then for the 1995 season, both leagues, the first and the second division in Speedway, merged into one, which at the stage of my career was probably the worst thing that could have happened, because it made it really difficult. So the 1995 season, although I wouldn't say I went back over, I didn't progress how I would have liked to progress. Result in the end of the 95 season, Middlesbrough decided to not retain my services for 96 and put me up for being available to other clubs. That resulted in Cradley Heath, who I suppose at the time would be sort of like the Manchester United of the Speedway world. Give me a call, probably early in the year, late January, to ask me if I wanted to go and race for them.
But, Cradley said they would really prefer to buy me, and basically the decision come to me whether I wanted to be sold or loaned, and if the way I saw it, if Cradley were prepared to take the chance on me, then I was more than happy to come as a full transfer.
At the time, I had two American riders who would end up winning 5 world titles between them. The year I actually rode there, Billy Hamill, he won the world title. And our team manager was a former world champion, and the experience I gained from 96 was unreal. They arranged for us to go and race in Sweden against the clubs over there. The knowledge I picked up from racing against like the best riders in the world was invaluable. So at the end of the 1996 season, both leagues separated back into back into two leagues again, due to it not being financially viable for them to run separately, especially for the smaller clubs. Middlesbrough and Crayleith both closed down because both the stadiums got sold for either housing developments or other projects. So again, found myself out of a club. I wasn't really that concerned due to the fact that I already had a job still working at Tim's Garage, and I was established enough then, especially when they'd gone back to two leagues, to be confident to get a team place, especially in the lower league. I had offers from Edinburgh, Berwick, Newcastle and Bellevue, who were in the top league, and the best option for me, I thought, was Newcastle. So I signed for Newcastle in '97 and had a pretty successful stint there for the next 4 years. So right up to the end of 2000. 2000 probably the best year for them until it came to the 2000 and start of the 2001 season. And then, although Newcastle assured me I was in their plans for the 2001 season, got to about late February when they decided to tell me that my average didn't fit into their plans, and they were signing somebody else who did, and probably got fixed up with Glasgow a week later and signed for them for 2001. The 2001 season at Glasgow started off pretty good, scoring good points, making some good money. I was like riding as a heat leader at the time, and probably for the first few months of the year, I thought, yeah, it's paid off. I like got over the Newcastle disappointment and was flying, and then it all seemed to come crashing down. There was like literally crashing down. I had some really bad smashes, which obviously took a lot of my what I'd already made that year to repair the bike. I'd had an engine blow up, which basically cost thousands to replace, which you obviously can't get back. And on top of that, at the time, the foot and mouth situation in the farming industry in this country was just sort of like starting off. Obviously, my family were heavily involved in farming, especially dairy farming. They were basically losing their livelihoods overnight. And on top of that, I just went through a really bad patch of bad luck. Some crashes that weren't my fault, bending bikes. I was using equipment that I'd sort of like put to one side because I'd finished with it. That was having to use again like old gear. So that was knocking my confidence. I wasn't competitive, and it just got to a point that year where I just said, you know what, I'm not enjoying this. I can't go and race a bike at 70, 80 mile an hour round the track if my heart's not in it, or my head for that matter. So I spoke to the promotion. Not something that I ever wanted to do. If I signed a contract at the start of the year, I would like to see it through. Went to see the promotion, who were really good about it, and I explained the situation. And they basically let me quit halfway through the year, which is something that I never ever thought I would do. But at the time, I thought I'm not doing myself justice, and I'm certainly not doing the club justice, who were like paying me to do a job if my head and heart's not in it. So pretty much half in June 2001, I quit the Speedway and walked away. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. I didn't really go to many Speedway meetings at all, so I tried to keep away from it, because it was one of those things where if I went to watch, I would end up getting dragged back into it, and it wasn't a time in my life when I really wanted that. So I went to the odd meeting. We went to the Grand Prix. Had started by then, so we used to go to the Grand Prix when possible. And I know that Middlesbrough reopened in 2006, but as Redcar Speedway at a different venue. So like I now had like a local track to go to. In 2009, they started putting on at Redcar Speedway. They started putting on some like open days where you could go and pay a few quid to have a ride round, or I think they were even hiring bikes out and one thing or another, so anyone could have a go. I decided probably enough time had elapsed between me finishing and then for me not to get tempted back into it to have another ride. So I borrowed a junior's bike who I'd known for a lot of years, just to have a skid round on that day, pay me 20 quid or whatever, and ended up really doing well, got hooked on it again, and basically the promoter who was at Redcar at the time was obviously there watching, quite impressed. Didn't say anything at the time, but I thought, well, the guy said, oh, keep me bike for a bit. So I did a few more practice open days. Next thing, I sold my road bike that I had on the road to buy a brand new Speedway bike. And long story short, within probably 2 months of that happening, I was in the team.
Stuart, you've had a while away from the sport and came back in July. I want to know, what made you come back?
I don't know really. I keep saying like a midlife crisis, but I'm not sure. I just had a practice and got the bug back again.
But you seem to be enjoying it. You just sold us out there.
Yeah, I've really got my enthusiasm back for it and got really determined to do well. So here we are at Redcar Speedway, South Tees Motorsport Park. This is where I raced 2009, 2010. Had a lot of good races here, really good race track. You can probably see up by the top corner there's quite a lot of banking. This is although a small track, we would race this absolutely flat out. We're stood at the start line right now, looking down into the first corner. So it's not a very big track, but it certainly races really fast. It's absolutely flat out. And the problem we had with this was we had no home track advantage, because everyone who came here loved it. They could race it right from the get-go. This was also the place where Sky Sports came to film a match against Edinburgh. Pretty much the one and only time I was actually on TV. Not a bad meeting for myself. Won my first race. Okay, it was a really wet night. The start got delayed because it was pouring down. But obviously, with all the cameras and everyone that was here, that they tried the best. On any other night, they'd have probably called it off due to the weather. Won my first race. Bittersweet really, because my last race got excluded for knocking German rider Max Dilger off, which was actually coming into this corner. I come alongside him up the straight, overtook him up the straight, but just as I was calling the corner, sort of like clipped his back wheel. Clipped his front wheel. I argued that I'd already passed him, and he sort of like turned into my back wheel. But you know, it's like any sport. Once the referee makes a decision, he won't overturn it. It's pointless arguing with it, because you end up getting fined and stuff like that. But you know, throughout my career, I had loads of decisions like that go for and against me. To be fair, sometimes I maybe caught a few riders, knocked a couple off, you know, not deliberately, but sometimes you get the decision, sometimes you don't. It's just the way it goes. It was June the 13th, 2010. We travelled up to Glasgow. We had a depleted team anyway, which meant that I went out in the first race of the night, Heat 1, against a rider called Joe Screen, who just dropped down from the top league. He'd been to Berwick the night before, unbeaten. Glasgow had paid a fortune for him to sign him. I was filling in for one of our missing riders in Heat 1. Jumped out the start, won the race. The only one to beat Joe all night, fastest time of the night, and I thought, that's it, I've cracked it. Scheduled out in my next race, which was Heat 2, so I was straight out again, which was the reserves race, which on paper the easiest race of the night. We didn't even make the first corner. A new kid, Australian lad called Nick Morris, we tangled, is the best way, it was no one's fault really, tangled just on the entrance to the first corner, and that's about all I knew about it. Ended up getting straightened up, straight into the fence, and basically that was it, career over. Did my cruciate ligaments, some thumb damage, and that's when I decided to hang it up after that. So life after Speedway, I think it does have
stopping something that you've done all your life has quite a big effect on your mental health. It leaves a massive hole in your life, and I think you hear of likes of footballers who suffer from it when they've suddenly been at the top of the tree, then they stop playing, then everything's gone. It's a massive part of your social life. A lot of my friends, since I was a 16-year-old lad, right up to into my 30s, were all based around Speedway. So when you walk away from it, you walk away from a lot of your social life and every other life aspect of your life that you've had for so long. So it was difficult in that respect. At the time, the first time when I stopped after the crash at Glasgow, I had like children born, so that took a lot of my focus anyway. So as far as I was concerned, yes, it did have an effect. I still stayed in touch with a lot of my old friends from the Speedway. We still do to this day. But I think although it has had an effect, I have managed to fill my life in different ways. So to sum up my Speedway career, in the 12 years that I raced Speedway, I raced with and against some of the best racers in the world, made lifelong friends, and for that time at least, I was living my childhood dream. How many people can say that?